subconscious and the physical body. The subconscious mind is this lunar influence, the crescent. It's the moon. In your chart, the moon represents your subconscious more than anything else. The sun is conscious mind. If you have a conflict, let's say a square between sun and moon in your chart, or an opposition, a stress aspect, that shows a great amount of conflict between the conscious mind and the subconscious. Let's translate that into a meaning. You'd have a great amount of conflict between the soul and the spirit. You'd have a great amount of conflict between the will, which is the sun. The will is the conscious will. And the moon is the emotions.
Oh, I know.
Okay, so you'd have a great amount of conflict between the will and the emotions. And also the moon is the needs. The moon is this recording, honey? Elena? Oh, I didn't know. So that stand's going to fall because it's not spread out enough. Okay?
I'll make sure.
It would just take one little tap and
Okay.
go over it.
All right.
So the spread the legs. Otherwise, it won't be stable.
All right.
So anyway, so if you have somebody with a sun-moon aspect, it's a stress aspect, a square, opposition, semi-square, 45 degrees. That means that there's a conflict between will and feelings, will and emotion. It also represents a conflict between habits. The subconscious, the moon is your habit patterns. It's your people that have conflicts like that are often have problems with weight because their need for food, which is nurturing, the mothering moon, which, it's when there's a little bit of pain, a little bit of aggravation as a child, what does the mother do? Sticks a bottle in your mouth if you're crying, or sticks a breast in your mouth and comforts you, right? We are still innately that being inside of all of us. We're all struggling to get nurtured from someone, some way. So what happens is, when we are going through a lot of conflict, we often seek out food as a comfort. And what does that produce? Weight problems and obesity and other problems, okay? So, even me. So what happens is, we end up with problems with weight. So whenever the moon and the sun are afflicted, that's something you can talk about with a client. Okay? It's pretty simple. Now, the moon is the soul, but it's also a receptive subconscious. It's your childhood. It represents the early years of your life, the formative years, okay? Can I talk about people's charts in here, yours,
Yep.
everybody? Okay. Like I just did her chart for Linda, and she has the Mars conjunct the moon. Well, right away, that tells me there's conflict with the mother. Moon mother. Mars conflict. War. Okay? Now, those planets are also opposing Saturn. Now we got the father involved. Father time, Saturn. And Saturn there's two father symbols in a chart. Interesting, you need to know this. There's two father symbols in a chart. One is Saturn, the other Sun. One's kind of like the spiritual father, and one is the disciplinarian. You will not do this. The limitations of Saturn. I will put a limit on this. This is how you're going to do. My son has a conflict in his chart between the sun, his will, and Saturn in his chart. I'd have to look again. But anyway, but his conflict with me has always been if I'm the Saturn father. And he's a Leo. Guess who wins? Even as a child. I couldn't turn him over to get his butt. I mean, he was that strong. He was that determined, that resistant, and that strong. His will was determined not to take my discipline. And I grew up learning as a father that I'm the child to him.
That you're what?
I'm the father to him. He's the father to me in many respects. I've learned more about things from him than I could ever teach him. He's become, even as a child, he taught me things because he dealt with my anger in a way. I've always had Mars square Sun when it's born. So Mars square Sun is what? Quick tempered, right? My spirit is quick to temper, but I get over it quick. But anyway, so we're going to learn this language. We're going to start to understand it. So all these planets are made up of these three things. So if you look at the sun, it's a circle with a dot in it. It means centralized. Everything's focused. Your spirit is now into a focus like a magnifying glass. All the light goes through the prism of the center. The moon is a double, of course, you know that. Venus is the circle over the cross. So what's dominating? The spirit's dominating the physical body. Mars is the arrow, but it's a broken cross, really. It's really a cross over the circle. That means that the senses dominate the spirit. In the case of Venus, we say it's a planet of what? Love, right? We say Mars is a planet of war, fighting, conflicts, right? So, Mars is sexual, very aggressive. Mars says, let's get it on. And Venus responds back and says, let's put love first. Why? Because this is on top of the physical. Okay? So, Jupiter is the crescent over the cross. Now what's dominating the physical? Compassion, the mood, the feelings.
The soul.
Right. Exactly, the soul. Jesus, Jesus, that's where that archetype is. Jupiter's the archetype for Jesus. He was a compassionate human being. He was a compassionate, caring, healing, work. The early Christians worked with hypnosis. A lot of the work they did in hypnosis and healing was done that way. If you doubt it, I'll share a scripture with you, and you'll hear it real well if you really observe it. That says, Paul beheld him with steady gaze and said, your sins are forgiven you, get up and walk. Why did it say he beheld him with steady gaze? You ever seen a hypnotist work? He got right into that soul, right? He penetrates beyond that surface of the spirit and the conscious will and gets into the soul. That's where the healing takes place. So this is the Jesus, Jesus. Saturn is Satan of the Bible. Okay? Saturn is this, the cross dominating the soul. We talked about last week, I said Rosemary's Baby. Remember the movies about these possessed kids? What was the other one you guys mentioned? Another movie. Anyway, the possessed child, okay? What are we talking about? The subconscious. If I hypnotize one of you and put you in a trance, put you on a chair here, put you between your feet and your head on a chair, I can sit on you, you won't budge, you won't budge. You couldn't do that consciously, but I can do it under hypnosis. I can hold your arm out here and tell you as strong as an iron rod, and you won't move it. I can't bend it. Even if, your strength is never, going to be able to do that in a conscious, willful state. But under subconscious suggestion, it works that way. Your body's controlled that way. You've heard of people in emergencies lifting up cars, women, picking a car up off of a child or somebody. Why? Because they're coming from another level. Okay, so here's where the cross subverts the subconscious in the sense of Saturn. Saturn is called the subtlest of all the beasts. You notice why subtle? The moon is subtle. The moon is subtle. It's conscious. Mars is direct. Mars says, I don't like you, I'm going to knock you down. That's Mars talking. It's aggressive, out there, out front. You know where it's coming from consciously, right? Saturn is subtle. Saturn says, let me tell you, Sherry's a nice person, but let me tell you something about her. Then the knife comes in, right? That's subtle, isn't it? That's the accuser of our brother, what Satan was called. Saturn, Satan, the devil. The accuser of our brother. He who accused our brother before God both day and night. It's the spirit of accusing, fault-finding. You're not worth anything. I'm not worth anything. I don't feel I'm worthy. Peter in the Bible, if you read my book, Peter in the Bible was symbolic of Satan. Peter rules rocks, crystals, minerals. Saturn rules rocks, crystals, minerals. Peter was the rock upon which the church was built. It wasn't referring to it wasn't referring to a temple down on 4th and Main. It was referring to the physical body. And the physical body upon the rock upon which it's referring to is right here. What does the man call himself here? Peter? Strange, isn't it? Why do we refer to ourselves as Peter there? How about cock? When the cock crows 3 times, thou shalt deny me what? Peter, thou shalt deny me 3 times, right? Why do you think those words are there? It's trying to give you a subtle message. Most people never see it. Christians would never want to have you hear this stuff. But Peter, upon this rock I'll build my church, and the gates of hell shall not prevail against it. You know what the gates of hell are? Right here. Okay? Watch this. Christ said to Peter, whatsoever thou shalt loose on earth shall be lost in heaven. Where's heaven? It's within you. Whatsoever thou shalt bind on earth shall be bound where? In heaven. You ever heard of Kundalini? You heard the serpent force of Kundalini in yoga? And it's a spine. On the spine, there's two serpents that goes up the spine. You ever see the caduceus, called the healing symbol of the physicians? The caduceus, you got two serpents going up a spine, up a staff. Do you remember Moses was in the desert and he raised up the serpent on the staff for what reason? For the healing of the nation, for the healing of the people. It was referring to this energy. It was raising the serpent force, this Kundalini, which is that Satan, the devil, the serpent, raising it up to higher levels of consciousness. Okay? So, whatsoever shall bind on earth shall be bound in heaven, be brought up. If you raise it all the way up here into this place, guess what happens? You have enlightenment, you have many things that go on of transcendent nature. And what do? We depict these saints with what around their head?
Halo.
A what?
Halo, which is the aura.
Okay, good, good. Have you ever seen the ring around Saturn and the real Saturn up there? It's symbolic of that. It's symbolic of that. There is halos, yes. I mean, I know that, you know. But there's the rings that are symbolic of somebody's raised up Saturn to the heavens within. See, all these things, Satan himself is a servant of God. If you doubt that, read Job. You remember Job, the story of Job? All these things happened to Job, and how did it happen? It said Satan came into the council of the angels. Because he's an angel, but he's a fallen angel. What's falling? Get the energy? Falling. But it said he came into the council of the angels, and the Lord says, do you see my righteous man Job down there? And what'd Satan say? Yeah, he's righteous, but let me spend some time on him, and what will he do? He'll curse you to your face. Remember I said what Satan and Saturn's about? Cursing, accusing, finding fault, right? So what does the Lord say? Yeah, you go down here, but skin, bone, and flesh, leave it alone. Don't touch it. You can do what you want to him, but don't mess with his body. Well, man, did Satan do his job. He lost everything he had. His children, the Sabians came in and raped and killed and destroyed his family. He lost his cattle, he lost his crop, he lost his everything. Except his wife hung in there for a while. Until the next time, Satan goes before the Lord. The Lord says, you see my righteous man? Because Job didn't say, after all this happened, guess what Job does? What would you do? If you went home and your house is burned to the ground, some terrible things happen to your family, you've lost all your wealth, you'd be cursing, wouldn't you? Normally, that's what you do. But what does Job do? He says, Lord giveth, the Lord taketh away. Blessed be the name of the Lord. Blessed be the name of God. Huh? Can you imagine that? That's a holy man there. Because what's Saturn want you to do in your chart? Saturn wants you to do. Satan wants you to accuse, find fault. How do you start accusing yourself? Oh, I'm not worthy, I'm not this, I'm not pretty, I'm not, you know, oh, I am not. That's what Peter was about. I am not. Aren't you one of them? No, I'm not. 3 times, I'm not. I'm denying. So what I'm trying to teach you is how to understand these energies. Going back to Job. Satan goes back into the council of the angels. Guess what? He's given permission again. This time because Satan says, yeah, skin, bone, and flesh is a different thing. Let me go down and work on there. He will definitely curse you to your face. Now he comes down, he breaks out in boils. He's disgustingly sick. He's got all manners of disfigurement from these boils. And his wife even leaves him. She says, how can you be a righteous man, Job? I have more to do with you. But what happens? He doesn't curse God. He cursed the day he was born. That's the only thing he ever cursed. But he never cursed God. So what happens? The Lord sees this and he says, he not only restores everything to Job, he gives him more. He blesses his life beyond blessing after this because he went through these trials. What's that got to do with astrology? What's it got to do with your life? Huh? Here's a lady I know, I just did her chart. She's got Saturn affliction heavy in her chart. It's on the Grand Cross. That means Saturn's worked strong in her chart. It's with her. Mars is with the moon opposing Saturn. I know the father and mother have been a big grief in her life. I mean, that's father time, Saturn's the accuser sitting down here opposing Mars, moon, the mother, and angry mother. You know, see that? And I don't need to know her to know that. I know it from her chart. I met her just yesterday, a couple days ago. She came to the meeting when it was a little meeting. But the point is that I knew it when I saw a chart, and yet, you know, you meet her and you say, oh, this woman doesn't look like she's been through that much pain. And she tells me what, just after 50-some years, you finally gave it up with your parents. No more to do with it. Because they caused grief to her all her life. That's Saturn in your chart, the accuser.
It's Saturn opposing the moon? Is that
In
what
her
it is?
case, it's Saturn opposes her moon, and its moon is conjunct Mars. Okay? So do you mind we do that?
No, you
We're,
haven't.
we're gonna do this only by your permission.
That's fine.
Only by permission do we do this, because I don't want anybody feeling I'm invading in their privacy, but
So
if
it's
you...
interesting that I was thinking about this the other day. It's like we become an individualized personality when we put that dot in the center of the circle.
Exactly.
There's no dots in any of the other circles.
That's right, it's exactly. It's spirit made manifest by being focused. And your power and your will is determining what? By your focus power, your concentration, your attention span, you know? Okay.
I just had a question.
Yes,
I was just curious, is there any significance if you have houses that have no planets in them at all? I mean, sure, everybody
No.
has that.
no. I mean, I won't say no. I mean, may be less activity in that particular area of your life. We're going to cover that because every house represents a certain area. But every house is ruled by a planet. So that planet that rules that house has a lot of influence over that house. And so it's carrying another message when it goes to another place in that chart. So real quick, we'll do Linda's real quick. I just want you to see this. She has Mars conjunct the moon. And it's in Leo, the moon. And the Mars is in Cancer. It's in a bad place. Why is it in a bad place, Cancer, for the moon, Mars? Detriment, good. It's opposite sign that it's exalted in, okay? It's Capricorn, it's very strong in there, but Cancer, it's not. You're going to learn those weakness points as you study this astrology. Now, over here is Jupiter at 29 Capricorn. There's a good message also in this I want to share with you. It's 29 degrees Capricorn. Okay, and then we have whoops, I'm sorry, that's Saturn, I'm sorry, whoops. I didn't mean to do that. Okay, Saturn's right here. I don't know, hope you can all read that. 29, and Jupiter's at 5 Aquarius. Okay. Okay. This is directly opposed
It's
here.
in the 5th house, actually.
Yes, 5th house.
Yeah, you drew it in the 6th. but
Oh,
it's-
I'm sorry.
Just so everybody
Thank
knows
you,
that.
thank you, yeah.
That's probably important.
Keep me honest, okay, good.
I
That
don't
would
know
make
if
a
it's
big
important or
difference.
not.
Yeah, it would.
It does.
You would definitely, yes.
Sixth house would mean something else, right?
Okay, Saturn
I
at
would think.
29. Okay, 29 Capricorn, and Jupiter's at 5 Aquarius. Okay. There we go. Okay, that's what it is. Okay. Now, there's something really important in this alignment. And that's not all, by the way. The sun is over here. Do you remember I said what I say about sun afflicting the moon earlier? What did I say?
Conflict.
Conflict? Good. Conflict between what?
Conscious and unconscious.
Good, good. You're
Will
learning.
and
Say
Good.
what?
Conscious and subconscious.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay, remember we talked about what? The weight,
disciplinary.
fighting weight, right? Is that, because why? Moon is need to nurture.
Yeah.
Sun is conscious will. The will,
And emotions.
fighting the emotions or the emotional needs. Okay, so we see, okay, and then if that wasn't good enough, she's got Neptune down here. Makes the grand cross. Okay, this is a 10 Scorpio. Okay, so what happens is they form a grand cross. Okay? Now, here's the thing about this chart that's redeeming, okay? And remember I said I gave you all a printout of your chart. If you didn't get one, be sure to make sure I get you one. I sent a lot of them in the emails to you. But if you need it printed out here, I can do it too if you didn't get it. But here's the point of this is, a computer can only see individual aspects. It doesn't integrate the chart. It doesn't say, oh, there's a cross here, but there's something redeeming this cross. And I'm going to tell you, this is a very powerfully good chart. I'll tell you why. Because Jesus is on the cross. What am I talking about? Anybody?
Jupiter.
Jupiter's on the cross. Anytime you see a person with a cross with Jupiter on it, that means that they are spiritually going to be giant. They're going to overcome the cross they've had in their life, and they're going to resurrect above all of that conflict.
Do I have that? That sounds pretty good. Let's hear it.
We'll get into it. Everybody's going to get some time in this class.
Resurrect above the obstacles?
Yeah,
That's
oh, absolutely.
wonderful, yeah.
And you'll also be forced to grow spiritually.
Oh, yeah, I know,
You know that? It's like you're driven, almost driven.
I know.
Because Jupiter's higher knowledge and philosophy, higher understanding. It's truth, not organized religion, really. Although generally people that have that aspect go through those things first before they come above it. Okay, they have to sometimes need the structure to start out with to help learn them. But this is really salvation. The problem, anytime though, there's a couple things with this aspect. Anytime you see Saturn conjunct Jupiter, opposing the Moon and Mars, her most dangerous period is nighttime. What do I mean by dangerous? It's when the emotions, the dread, the fear, the negativity surfaces. Okay, you know? So it can be difficulty sleeping with that kind of aspect. So people that have that aspect often can't sleep well.
What is a Saturn and what?
Well, there's two things. Saturn, first of all, Saturn opposing Mars and the Moon. The Moon rules night and sleep, so it's involved in that. The conscious will is also involved. The Sun and Moon are exactly square. In addition to that, Jupiter conjunct Saturn. Jupiter is optimism and faith in the future. Jupiter represents where you're going and what you see as you're optimistic about. Your hope of the future, what you see. Jesus, the light of the world, okay? It's the light in you. It's the ability to how would I say, to see the light at the end of the tunnel. Okay? But Saturn is a wall. A stone wall that looks like there's no way getting over this one. It's obstacles in your path. It's all those things. It's a stumbling block, if you would. That's all Saturn's words. It's denies you. And the thing with a chart like this is there's a conflict between the huge optimism and faith and this great, I'm not worth anything, I'm not this, I'm not that, Saturn all the time. Fear, Saturn. What is fear, by the way? Anybody answer that question? What is fear? Huh?
Absence of love.
Opposite of love, that's good. Perfect love casteth out fear, good answer. Fear is faith. Okay? In fact, when she came the other night, I was talking about this a lot, when Linda came. Fear is faith. People say, I don't have any faith. I don't believe in anything. I said, yeah, you do. Everybody has faith. Everybody has faith. The pessimist has faith. But he's got faith in something other than good. He's got faith that everything's going to work out for shit. Excuse me. Watch the language. But he's convinced, or she's convinced, that there's no good future ahead for me. I've met people, I don't expect to live past 30, I say, really? Well, you probably won't. By your faith it is accorded unto you, right? Scripture says. So whatever you are holding in faith and consciousness, you can create, okay? If you're walking in that consciousness, you can have those things happen to you in life. And so fear is faith. Everybody has either positive or negative faith. Jupiter was called Optimum Maximus in the old days. Optimum Maximus. How about we translate that to maximum optimism? Huh? That's really what it is. That's Jupiter. So she has Jupiter on that cross, which means that the more you put her on the cross, the more pain she goes through, the more crises she has, the more powerful her faith will come to the surface. Unfortunately, sometimes it means you have to go through those things to get that faith. Because you're a fighter when it comes to faith. And there's a struggle in you that is against this powerful side. And the other interesting thing too is Jupiter's in Uranus, and Uranus' sign, it's in Aquarius. Okay? Did I put that in the right house?
5, yeah.
I did, good. So Jupiter is in Aquarius. That means that it's in a sign that's called the hope sign. Aquarius is hopes, friends, and social things. She needs to be involved in social activity. She needs to be involved in social reform, some way. If it's working with a group that's socially working towards some kind of reformation for the good of all, the good of society, Aquarius is all about that. And Jupiter's there, which means you can bring a lot of light. And Saturn's there too, which means you can bring discipline. See, I'm not giving a negative meaning now, am I? Saturn can bring discipline, it can bring structure, it can bring leadership, because Saturn's in its own sign, Capricorn. And if you bring these two together, working towards a higher purpose, then you get something really powerful in this woman. And it's in the 5th house, which means a creative house, by the way. Now, every house has a meaning, okay? Aries, the first house is I am, it's persona, the way you are, the personality. Taurus is I have, it's things that you possess, both in character and otherwise. By the way, Taurus was considered by the Essenes. If you read the Dead Sea Scrolls, they were astrologers. The Christians were real excited about finding the Dead Sea Scrolls until they found out it had astrology in it. And then it took them 25 years to even release anything. They didn't want to. But then there was a guy came along named Allegro who wrote a book called The Sacred Mushroom and the Cross.
And the cross, I have it, yeah.
Yeah, oh, did you read it? Read it.
Sure.
It's amazing. So, because the early Christians were mushroom cultists, and that's why they were persecuted. And they were taking sacred mushroom, and it's like the war on drugs.
This book destroyed his career.
Oh, it did.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, they did one.
His wife left him and
Oh, yeah,
just
yeah.
lost his job, everything.
And he's one of the top scholars that was working on that.
Oh, yeah. Linguist.
Yeah,
Amazing.
yeah, yeah. It's a great book. Well-read guy. But anyway, so what we're dealing with here is, we're not talking about mushrooms right now, but we're talking about what are we talking about? Social reform. How I got on that other track, I don't know.
Essenes.
Oh, the Essenes
The
said,
Essenes.
of all the signs, they considered to be the most spiritual of all was Taurus. Interesting, Taurus. Why Taurus? You don't think he's materialistic Taurus, right? It's not the case. It's one of the most, it's a fixed sign, as Taurus, Scorpio, and Aquarius, and Leo is fixed. They tend to be stubborn, yeah, but they have persistence as well. If you
Perseverance.
persevere, if you spend 10 years getting an education and hang in there and get graduate, that's perseverance. You need that. If I'm all mutable mostly, so I want to just, I flip one thing to the other. The only thing I stayed with all my life was astrology, really strong. Because it kept me entertained, kept me educated, kept me everything. It made my life. In 9 years of imprisonment, being in prison, I was never bored. Every chart I did was something new, a new adventure, learning, discovery, researching. It was all about that for me. So it kept me sane for those 9 years. Okay.
I have a question.
Yeah.
This house, is this also a house of children? You have Saturn here, which kind of denies or restricts.
And
you
Jupiter.
have Jupiter is like the opposite. It's like,
Yeah. That's
So,
a
how many
good
children do you
observation.
I have twin daughters.
oh, that's right, that's one,
I have twin daughters.
The thing with
But that was a difficult thing for me to do.
was it?
I don't know. I mean, I'm just wondering what the chart says.
Oh,
She
no.
was wondering what I had.
Yeah, well,
Why?
it's because she said Saturn's in there, it often denies that child because it's in that house. Very often the first child, was there a child before that? Never? No abortions? Or you wouldn't, I hate
yeah,
that.
boy and girl or
Twin girls.
When girls, sometimes the Saturn will deny being in that house, that's what she's asking about, because it's in the 5th. Doesn't mean it's happened, but it's.
Sometimes people don't have children when they have that in their 5th house.
Well, the thing is, there's a contradiction in this, because we
I
have
wanted
con-
5.
But Jupiter is the hope for the future, right?
Yeah.
And
I wanted
Saturn
5.
is
So maybe that
a
says
stone wall.
something.
You got it.
So what does that have to, isn't that blocking the future? Maybe of the children?
The
or
thing
for
is,
love? 'Cause
the
it
thing is
also
that there's
represents
several
love,
things,
right?
there's several things in this chart. One is that the both planets, they're the opposite meaning, okay? One's very positive, very expansive, very good, and the other one is restrictive and limiting. But Saturn is in Capricorn, you have to recognize it's in its own sign.
Ah.
So it gives a lot of strength to that, okay? So it's not necessarily negative. I don't think, anybody that has Saturn in Capricorn in the 5th house is very sensual, first of all. excuse me, I don't want to get personal, but it's a very powerful,
My husband died when my kids were 3. I wanted more kids.
well, that would fit.
Yeah, because that's the father, right?
Good for you, good for you.
That
That's
means-
what we're
that
looking
represents
for.
the father.
Okay, now what we're seeing. Good for you bringing it up.
It was a restriction towards the father.
Yes, I wanted
Now,
more kids,
now,
yeah.
see where we're going, listen to that. See, now, that is beautiful. And this is what happens when you're doing charts. You're talking with somebody, you're trying to figure it out, you're trying to see it. And then all of a sudden, something that you would never suspect comes up
There's
to
many
show you the
aspects
meaning
to it.
of that aspect. And Sherry saw it and said it first, and that's beautiful, and then you saw the father. Tell me you guys aren't learning. I mean, listen to you. You know, you're starting to see things and see relationships. Making sense, I hope. So I teach a little bit different. I'm not in, you've got plenty of textbooks teach astrology about the signs and their meaning and all that. I want you to see it working. I want to see it, you looking in your own charts and start to interpret and do what's going on in here. I'm real proud of you. That's good. So, anyway, okay.
Yay!
And by the way, anytime Sun, Saturn are square, Sun is life. And so, you know, and Mars opposing Saturn is also danger to the father figure, okay, or the husband, okay, Saturn. This could be violence even, okay, Mars. It doesn't have to be, but it could be. And this could be a heart attack. This is Sun squaring, you know. So this is a cross that's making up a very real danger cross, okay.
I'm always worried about having heart
Oh my goodness.
attacks.
Can I ask how your husband died?
Car accident.
Try to see Mars.
Mars.
Opposing Saturn, squaring Sun, life. And the 8th house of death. Oh, wow.
That's right.
You starting to see it? So that fits very well. Very, very much the aspect, okay? So,
And the impact of the car caused the cardiac arrest.
the heart ended up being the victim as well. Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
You see how accurate this stuff is. This is, she's born with this implant in there. It's like there. This is what's going to be in your life, okay? You say, well, isn't that kind of negative? Well, you know, what if you knew astrology as a young person? What if you had the insights to understand it? I think that, you know, I used to, when I was in Chicago, particularly when I was younger, I used to teach in schools. They let me come in and teach astrology classes to kids, grade school kids. I have letters from them. You should see the letters, beautiful letters from these young kids. You know, I'm talking about, you know, 6, 7, 8-year-old. Think they don't understand? They wrote me the most beautiful letters. I still got them stashed away somewhere, telling me what a joy it was to be in their class and what they learned and how much exciting it was, you know. But we should be teaching this. I'll tell you why. It's another reason we should teach it in schools. Teaches, that forces you and drives you towards learning things like mathematics, this astronomy, psychology. You know, you can't help but learn all those things when you study astrology. You know, you're going to learn things that you wouldn't know, never go in that direction. But it forces you to, because you want to learn about astrology, you're going to learn all those other things.
What glyph is that underneath the moon? Is that a Leo? Or chart?
The moon is in Leo, right?
Oh, Leo.
Mars is in
Well,
Cancer.
Leo is a heart, right?
Yeah, but see, the thing is, that Mars is in Cancer. It's a very difficult sign. It's very much exalted in the opposite sign, you know, and as Catherine said, you know, it doesn't do well in that sign. Mars in Cancer, with opposition Saturn. As a woman, I would advise you to get really regular breast examinations.
God.
Am I
Too late,
too late?
too late,
Because this rules the stomach and the breast.
too late.
You had,
On both.
okay, you would tend to have
I
problems.
had bilateral mastectomy 7 years
Did you
ago.
really?
Oh, so that was an indication.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when I do a chart,
And yet, if I had known this earlier, I don't know that it would have mattered. I mean, I was up on it, my doctor missed it.
is that right?
I was up on it, yeah, every 6 months. So when I was 44, I had bilateral mastectomy. Yeah.
I would have never known, but I mean, I know from this, but I don't know from this. You
Put
look,
on a good front.
okay, Are you beginning to see this?
So that's Mars in
My
Cancer?
insides are
Yeah.
a mess.
Yeah. So you all have your time up here. We're picking on Linda today. Okay, so I
Because
do
Mars
this.
is activation, right? And,
Yeah.
and Cancer is the breast.
You got it.
So there was something.
Luigi, look at you.
And that,
going on
yeah, I know, he's.
I wrote everything down and, you know, it's difficult to,
Wow.
but
Gonna be a prize student here, I know. But let me tell you one thing, that it's not just because Mars is in Cancer, it's because it's afflicted so badly. It threatens life. Saturn here is involved. Saturn, by the way, rules the hardening of things, the tumors, things like that become rock hard.
And it was the stress from my parents.
Yeah.
I believe that.
Yeah, I do too. I'm sure of that. I'm sure of it.